What's up, everybody? Michael Richards here with Elite Athletic Performance. I appreciate you guys joining us again for another installment of our video series, helping our coaches out there that are charged with the development programs of their teams, especially in the baseball, softball world. But we're going to be coming out with some videos that will delve into the other sports, things like that, how we program the weight room, all kinds of stuff like that. So keep an eye out for those in the future. As always, who am I? Michael Richards. I'm the owner of Elite Athletic Performance here in Benton, Arkansas. If you care about my background, you can go over to our website and check that out. I've got a unique background. Like I always say, it's unique but not awesome. So you can go check that out. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. As always, like and subscribe to our channel. Growing a YouTube channel is like pushing a sled through quicksand. So the likes and subscribes are just absolutely vital to the algorithm, and that's what you can do to help us on your part and support our Patreon page, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. And then comment any questions that you have. That's really good for the algorithm and helps us with all of this stuff. So, and then the devotional, like I said, I haven't been reading those lately. I don't want to sound like a preacher or a preachy, so do what you want with that. If there's anything you'd like to discuss with that, I'd be happy to do that as well. So, moving into the video. So, the things that are on my mind, the top 5 things that I've got going on in my mind or that I'm thinking about when programming for baseball and softball athletes. So, things to keep in mind. Be careful with the help you get. If you're watching this video, then you have probably reached out to people before, to strength coaches, things like that, for help, and you got to be really careful. And I don't mean this to be rude or whatever, but it's the truth. In the weight room, there are so many different ways that you can do things. It's the ultimate million ways to skin a cat, and really and truly, you need a system. You need a few things stacked in your favor. If you reach out to 100 different strength coaches, you're going to get 100 different ways, and like not many of them are great at saying, yeah, that would work too. You know, like it's kind of like, yeah, well, this is my way. We are the ultimate alpha males, and we don't really do things like, and I say we, I'm a strength coach, so I'm lumping myself. I'm a little bit better at this than some, but we really don't. We're not great at saying, yeah, that would be a good plan too. You know, it's more like, well, it's not mine, so it's wrong. And so basically what I'm saying is, don't run yourself completely crazy with the help you get. Just remember to take all information like a buffet, pick from it what you can use, and then discard the rest or leave the rest alone. Don't go trying to overhaul everything you get, every piece of information you get from somebody that is more qualified in the weight room than you, just because they said to do it. Remember, that's their job, and if they tried to run your practices, it would be a disaster. And you know, there's always two sides of that. So just keep that in mind. And also, seriously, if you're watching this video, then you're probably doing a pretty good job. It's the ones that won't watch this video that really need the help. So that's something to keep in mind. There are a lot of bad programs or decent, mediocre development programs out there that put out some good athletes. So it's not like there are certain things that will do them a disservice, but there's hurting athletes, there's treading water, and there's getting better. And you know, some are treading water. There are a lot that tread water. So at least know that even if you're not doing a great job of it, you're probably, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do that won't necessarily hurt the athlete. It just won't help them as much as you would like for it to. So keep in mind, and this is just a side thing that I've got, kind of that I'm looking, you know, that you need to keep in mind as we go through this. You know, who is this for? Is it for a group of is it for your freshman guys in high school? Is it for a college team? Are you a college coach? You know, so that's going to change some of this information while you're going. And the very last slide that we'll go over about buckets, we'll really kind of get into this topic a little bit more. And then what's the goal? So are you trying to maintain strength during the season? Is it an off-season program where you are trying to make your guys more explosive? Are you trying to make them more powerful? what's the deal? So what are you trying to get accomplished? So those are just kind of some lenses to look at this through, and remember that I'm speaking to a broad audience, and that'll all play into that. So very first thing, and it's kind of boring, but it's true. You got to keep this in mind. This trumps everything. Logistics, the flow of the weight room trumps absolutely everything, and you've got to keep that in mind. And the reason for that is it's for their safety and it's for your sanity. Because if you're watching this video, then you are the type of coach that's left the facility many times at night beating yourself up because of this that you didn't do or that you didn't do. I've done it a million times. I do it still to this day, and I get that. But you gotta remember that if you are trying to have the perfect program, and you can lay out the perfect lower body speed workout for the day, and if you have certain pieces of equipment that are vital to that work, got 30 guys coming in and only 10 of them actually get something done, then really that plan was great, but it was not great because it didn't work. So it's only as good as what gets done. So you got to keep that in mind. If you've got 30 guys coming in and you had deadlift on the menu today and you want to use trap bars, but you've only got 2 trap bars, yes, it sucks that you probably aren't going to deadlift. Like, you need to back off of that deadlift and go to a farmer walk or something like that and use dumbbells if you got access to dumbbells. What I would do, depending on the size of the group, just as an example, I would say, holy cow, all right, we've only got 2 trap bars. We got 30 kids coming in at 4 o'clock or whatever. So instead of deadlifting, we're going to farmer walk. And then I'm going to do the math on that. I'm going to go, well, that's not going to help much. So I'm going to say, all right, so we're going to single arm dumbbell farmer walk with dumbbells, single arm unilateral work, get some unilateral upper body work. And then that way we're not limited by two hex bars. We got dumbbells galore. And then say you don't have many dumbbells that are heavy enough, well, then I'm going to increase the distance. It's not as good as doing a heavier, shorter farmer walk, but it's better than nothing, right? That's when you can get into saying it's better than nothing. When you have limited resources, that's when you're able to say, well, that's the best we can do. That's when better than nothing is okay. So that's kind of the thought process I would look at. Don't beat yourself up over that. Yeah, would it have been better if they could have deadlifted? Well, yeah, but I mean, remember, these are all I kind of look at our weight room as a lot of luxuries that are really good and build good athletes, but there are ways to still have a very solid program outside of what we have. It's just, there's a lot of luxuries in a really fully equipped weight room. So luxuries being the key word. Luxuries are not necessities. All right. So second thing that's on my mind, is it trackable? Random is not trackable, right? I know you don't want them to get bored. I know you don't want, really, let me back up. There are 2 reasons for random workouts. One, you're trying to fight boredom, right? Don't worry about that so much. You'd be surprised how much they really crave routine, and you know that. You're a coach. They'll be fine with it. Mix up the accessories a little bit. Don't get crazy with them, but keep the big lifts the same for the most part. We have a pretty intricate system that we roll through, but I have a way to track it, and they have folders, and we as the coaches really have started walking around and recording it for them because they always forget. But that's our job. Like I said, that's what we do. So that's a little bit different than your setup. So don't get too carried away with randomness. The only other reason you have random workouts is a person that's not really prepared and they're just throwing crap against the wall to see what sticks. Or using, a CrossFit workout or something like that. Remember, CrossFit, random, all the variability stuff, that's fine for general population just to get them moving and get them doing stuff, but athletes are a totally different animal. And so we need trackable things to keep progressing. The general population just needs to get off their butts. Athletes are off their butts already. We have to have a way more trackable and understandable way to go about taking care of them and giving them the things that they need. 5 sets of 5 and 5 times 3 is the juice. Some of you know I'm a bass fisherman. That's the term that everybody uses. The good stuff, the information, the best information there is. What's up, everybody? Just wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about our Patreon page. This is a way for you to support our channel with if you enjoy the free content that's coming out, if you find it helpful. I'd really appreciate you supporting us. $5 a month is all it takes, just to help to offset some of the production costs. The information is there, but these videos take about 20 hours of dedicated work to get from planning all the way to edited and downloaded. And so anything that we can do to streamline that will make the information come out quicker. We can churn out things and put more information out there and help more people. So obviously $5 a month is all it takes. If you want to support the channel more, I'm honestly working on ways to thank you for any larger support. I thank all of you for any support, but the $25 a month all access patron will receive some free downloads once we start making digital products. The first 5 people that join that, and then if you sign up for the $50 per month, you know, maybe I'll give you a hug or whatever, but get 25% off merchandise and just basically every free digital product for now until the end of time. So I appreciate you guys watching regardless. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Information there is. That's the juice right there. 5 sets of 5, 5 sets of 3. That's where you live, okay? 5 sets of 3, like on lunges, sometimes on 5 of 5, that's about the only variability you're gonna have. 5 sets of 5 in the off season, I would bang that every single week. 5 sets of 5, and then I'd use 5 sets of 3 in the in season. Maybe 4 sets of 3 if you really need to cut it down. Get in, get out, 5 sets of 3, and then that way it's trackable. If you do 6 sets of 4 this week and then 10 sets of 3 next week, that's a totally different load on the bar. It's not trackable. It's not even close. So, you know, if you want to alternate between 5 sets of 5 and 5 sets of 3 each week or something, you know, like that's where you can get a little bit of randomness. But again, I really wouldn't get too hung up on being random. They will your athletes will thrive on being able to track that and see gains way more than fighting boredom with random stuff, okay? So next thing that's on my mind, is it balanced? I shoot for, and understand this. This is the ultimate, you've heard me say before, if you've watched any of our videos, best case scenario, worst case scenario. And as a coach, if you haven't ever thought of this concept before, this is what you need. This is the juice as well, all right? Best case scenario, worst case scenario are always there, okay? Go into every situation, especially this one, knowing that you're probably not gonna reach best case scenario. It's kind of like what, shooting for the stars and reaching the moon or something, you know, like know that you will not reach best case scenario very often, but reaching for it will keep you away from worst case scenario a lot more than it would if you weren't doing that. I am always shooting for a 2-to-1 pull to push ratio with upper body work, which basically means for every rep we do pushing, I want 1 rep of pulling. I want 1 rep of horizontal pulling, that's 1. I want 1 rep of vertical pulling. That's not always gonna happen, but shooting for it will keep that, you know, if you audit your movements, and you know, that's what you call it when you are looking and making sure, and every now and then you got to look back and look at your programs and kind of audit them and be like, okay, how many pushes did we have on this day? How many, you know, you want to make sure that you avoid that situation where you've got like 15 push movements and 1 or 2 pull movements. That's where you end up with bad postures. That's where, you know, we just got to be very, very, very careful about that. So, and I also, I will lean towards, if I had, say, 2-to-1 pull push ratio, or, you know, and the logistics are keeping me from getting my vertical pulling, I would much rather have more horizontal pulling than vertical pulling. That's a personal preference, I guess. I feel like athletes just don't get it enough. And I'm always looking at it, we're going to talk about this later, I'm always looking at it from a bucket standpoint, and I want to, you need to be a bucket filler. And we'll get into that in the last slide. Look at the things that they need that they're not getting, and then try to fill those buckets. And they just don't get much horizontal pulling. That would be your lawnmower rows, inverted rows, things where the hands are, it's the exact opposite movement of a bench press, okay? It's the pull this way. A chin up is a vertical pull, right? We had snow. We had an ice storm here. I don't know if you can hear that or not. But there's ice sliding off the top of the building, and it sounds like it's falling down. But anyways, same concept for lower body, 2-to-1 push, but posterior chain ratio. So I want, crap, that's backwards. Sorry. So that's supposed to be posterior chain push. And I've told y'all before as well, I don't do extra takes of these videos. We're gonna roll with it. 2-to-1, that should be posterior chain to push ratio. So for every squat that we do, I want 2 movements of posterior chain, which is lower back, butt cheeks, hamstrings, basically. So what I'm trying to get to is, for every squat, I want some type of RDL, a hip thrust, barbell hip thrust, and some type of elevated foot hip thrust. There's a big difference in a hip thrust with your butt and your feet on the ground versus an elevated foot hip thrust. You want to get those in. That's a really big deal for hamstrings and sprinting and things like that because of the movement there. Get into that later, but I want to make sure that you have more posterior chain than you do your pushes, like your deadlift. Deadlift is that's some muddy water because it could be considered both. I look at it as a big lift, so I'm trying to put more posterior chain in addition to the deadlift. The main reason for that is I always fall back to posterior chain work. And if you by chance you're watching this video and you're not a baseball coach, if you're like a volleyball coach, soccer, things like that, that is very crucial because the posterior chain is what takes care of the knees. That's where you build that stability for the knees. So you can basically, if anytime I need an exercise, like something won't work for a particular athlete and I'm changing it, I always fall back to posterior chain work. That's the first place I go. So anyways, hopefully that makes sense. Next thing that's on my mind, when are the sprints going to happen? That is bottom line, okay? So if you're not going to sprint a couple times a week, then the program is incomplete, and I don't care what time of year it is, all right? The main thing you've got to understand, you have to understand this, please listen, all right? 30-yard max. That's as high as I'm going. That's not a magic number. I just don't want them sprinting, that's approximately the distance from home to first base, so that's a good number. We use 10-yard sprints in here because, for big logistics, like I was talking about earlier, the logistics of it, that's what we use. And because, 10 yards still takes, 2 seconds to sprint, a little under 2 seconds for athletes. That's faster than most movements in baseball and softball. So they've created the power I want them to create. They can slow it down, and the work that I need to get done gets done. Now, full rest between sprints, heart rate variability. All right, heart rate variability. If you have watched the first video I put out in these revamped discussion videos where it's called Energy Systems of the Body, you need to check that one out if you haven't seen it. I really go into this and talk about the energy demands of baseball, softball, and then I showed conditioning. Heart rate variability is really what that boils down to, right? There is no heart rate variability when you don't allow the athlete to catch their breath. So in baseball and softball and pretty much every other sport, there is a fluctuation of the heart rate throughout the game. It's not a constantly elevated situation unless it's cross country, right? So we don't want to train like that. One, you can't get more powerful if you're not training in your most powerful state. When you're tired and exhausted and out of breath, you are slopping through movements and you're getting better at being slow. And that's the way your body will train. That's the way it will react. That's the way it will adapt to the stress that you're putting it under. Full rest between sets. You're not wasting time. And I know this is a coach thing. I have it myself. You can't stand downtime. I get it. Believe me. But trust me, this is one of those things like making sure that they get enough sleep. It's boring, but it's not sexy, but it has to happen. So let them rest. Make sure that when they're coming back from their 10-yard, 15, 20-yard sprint, they need minimum 10 to 20 seconds of rest, of walking. Don't make them jog back. Walk back or stand still. They need to let their breath get caught to where they can be as powerful and move as fast as possible before they start the next sprint. Okay. Now, last one, and this is the most important one. So, which buckets need to be filled? And I look at it in buckets. You can call it whatever you want. And this is where you really get into the customization of things. So, what's a bucket? You know, it can be in athletic abilities. It can be unilateral versus bilateral, which is basically, you know, baseball, softball, we spend a lot of time on one foot, so unilateral work has to be in there. That's your lunges, your Bulgarian split squats, things that are done on one foot, side lunges. General weaknesses, you know, if you've got a young group, your freshman group, 8th grade group or something like that, you're a high school coach, you're going to address general weaknesses, and these are going to be your programs that don't have to have a bunch of customization in them. They have large, glowing, glaring general weaknesses, so you don't have to get custom, you don't have to go crazy. You just have to do a lot of posterior chain work, teach them how to squat and deadlift, how to lunge, push-ups, you know, chin-ups, teach them how to bench press, and you're going to be golden. It can be all the way down and as customized to throwing velocity, exit velocity, hitting power. The girl doesn't hit hard enough. They don't throw hard enough, you know, so you can work in a lot more med ball throws, things like that to help build that, you know, hitting more bombs, lack of mobility. You know, consider what the group needs. If you're a college coach or a high school coach watching this, then you don't really, it's tough to customize on an athlete to athlete basis, so you're going to want to break them up into sub buckets. So what I would do personally, the number one question that I want to know with every athlete or group that I work with, if I'm working with a group or a team, I'm going to go through, and the very first question I'm going to ask is which one of the guys in here or girls are loose movers and which one are tight movers. So who are the ones that are flexible and who aren't, because that's going to change how I approach some of their warm-up, some of their cool-down, things like that. That's something that I feel like a lot of people miss, you know. And the last bucket that I put in here, too much mobility. That is definitely a bucket that a lot of people miss, because we are constantly on this search for more flexibility, when I personally believe that is fool's gold. So you got to be careful about that. That's actually one of the next videos that's going to come out. Keep an eye out for that, on how to combat too much mobility. I know that sounds crazy, but trust me, there is a situation, especially in female athletes, where you have too much mobility. In fact, probably 8 out of 10 female athletes do already have at least enough to too much mobility, and basically you combat that in the weight room. But we can talk about that later in the next video. So that is how I'm looking and breaking down things. Hopefully this video helped. The last one that I'll go to again, please like and subscribe. This is our YouTube channel right here. We will be putting out new videos. We got two more coming out hopefully this week, one on female athlete nutrition, and the next one will be on how to test and how to tell if there's too much mobility in your athletes, how to combat that and things like that. So I appreciate you guys watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.